back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness podcast. Today we have an exciting guest for you. On April 13th, Rebecca Tillett was introduced as head coach of the SLU women's basketball program. She spent the previous 4 seasons transforming Longwood Lancers from a team tied for last place in the Big South to a team tied for first place in the conference, eventually winning the conference tournament, leading the program to its first ever NCAA tournament appearance, and securing a first 4 win. She becomes the 8th head coach in SLU women's basketball history, and she's had quite a busy 6 weeks. Coach Tillett, thanks for joining us on the Midtown Madness podcast.
Thank you both for having me. Any opportunity to talk about SLU women's basketball, I'm here.
Welcome to St. Louis. I know your kids were sending you listings right after it became official. How is that search going, and have you found something and got settled in?
We did. We found a house. We don't get in it quite yet, which is kind of typical in college basketball relocation. But my children were, all 3 of them separately, sometimes in a group message, sending me houses. Of course, at the time, I'm trying to work the team out, get to know St. Louis. But we actually, our youngest wants to go into real estate at some point, Maya. So she came out to help us pick the house. So that was really special for her to come out with her aunt and my niece, and the 3 of us went searching.
I don't envy anyone having to search in this market, let alone having to switch markets like that. I know it's got to be tough.
Yeah, everybody kept saying your house will sell in a day and you better buy a house in a day in St. Louis.
Right.
Definitely some of that was true. But we're really excited. Our youngest will be starting high school. Our son will be in a junior, and then our oldest, I'm allowed to talk about now because she's signed. She'll be on our St. Louis team here.
Well, you mentioned Isabel, I believe her name is.
Yes.
Is she signing as a like a preferred walk-on, or is it more of a true walk-on? What's her situation? I'm curious.
Yeah, she's signing with us. Fully on, and hopefully going to have a healthy year. She redshirted at Longwood due to injury. So
okay, I wasn't sure if she didn't play because of walk on or what.
Right. No, she was stress fractures. So she's good. She's healthy now, and really excited to have her here with us as well.
So speaking of getting settled in, one of your first official events as head coach was this week's groundbreaking ceremony for the Champion Center. How do you think that project will be transformative for your players?
It's such a special vision by so many people, obviously spearheaded by Chris May. And, just to have access to everything that a student athlete really needs to be successful. And it's truly one of the things that drew me to St. Louis in the first place. And that is, am I going to go to a place, right? I love Longwood. I love my time there and the leaders I worked with and the student athletes, of course. If I was ever going to leave that incredible situation I was already in, it would be for an opportunity like this. And so the Champion Center, goodness, access to high level nutrition, spiritual development, academic development, all in one space. We'll be able to have really great meetings with our team and in a film review aspect. And just, it's one of the things we already use in the recruiting process for St. Louis is the proximity of where they live to where they train and where they recover. But this, the O'Loughlin Family Champion Center is going to be next level for us. We've already shown recruits the video or images, and now it's a reality, seeing, ground being broken.
After graduating from William and Mary, you spent 10 years coaching at the high school level in Virginia. You were also a teacher, I believe, at the same time, and you come from a long line of teachers and coaches. How does having such a deep background in education kind of shape your approach to coaching? We've had one of the great teachers of basketball in the history of our game, Rick Majerus, here at St. Louis University. So we're familiar with kind of that approach to coaching.
I think if you research lots of coaches in the game, there's quite a few that are successful, I think, because of their background in education. And for me, it influences every decision that I make. As a teacher, if your students don't do well on a test, you're responsible for that, right? You're the one who instructed the material. And the same is true in the athletic realm. And I think when you keep education at the heart of the issue, if you're really here to help student athletes develop, and specifically for me, a personal mission of empowering women, right? Find, your passion, pursue it, and find another passion to go after as well. So I think that's really critical in how we plan our practices, how we evaluate. One example is when we break down film, right? Every coach in the country breaks down film. When we do it, I think we certainly take an educational approach to it. And the first section is must improve immediately. What do we have to change right now? And then what are we doing well, right? Positive clips. And then toughness and culture. How do we teach that continuously through our film work of what we want the programs that we lead to be about?
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm curious. You mentioned coaches, successful coaches out there, and I'm wondering what coaches you kind of found influence in. As a young woman, and even before that, and even up till now. What coaches you kind of mirror yourself after, or find inspiration in.
Yeah, good question. I think it starts with, like you mentioned, a family of teachers and coaches. So from a young age, without knowing it, I was being taught how to teach and I was being taught how to coach just by being around my parents. And then ultimately, the whole family went into what we call the family business of education and coaching. Um, Early in my career, when I decided I wanted to coach, when I was teaching elementary and then eventually high school, my dad said to me, you need to study. If you want to do this and you want to be good, you need to study. And you need to study as many people that have been successful in women's basketball or basketball. And of course, across the years in it, you broaden that even to other coaches and other sports to kind of build your repertoire of skills and knowledge. So, when I first started, I studied Pat Summitt a lot, obviously read a lot of what Gino had done with his teams, Coach K at Duke. Some coaches I'll study for a period of time. And I really think the way that we treat student athletes is critical. And obviously, in the current landscape of college athletics, that's going to need to stay at the forefront of our mission. And I think that's always been important to me. So there's been times that I pick up a book and I read it and I start to study it. And maybe I don't disagree, I disagree philosophically with how that coach is leading. So I've been known to put some books down in my time of research. But there's just been some influential times throughout my career. Trina Patterson was my head coach in college at William and Mary. And, I thanked her recently for her influence on my career, being led by a strong Black mother at the time of my career certainly influenced my path of coaching. And then there's one story that I've never told that you guys just made me think about, but Kathy Rush, who was, if you know your history on women's basketball, a championship coach at Immaculata. There's actually movies about it, books about it. I worked her camps in college. So my college head coach, Trina, said, if you guys want to be good players, you should really go work all these camps because they play pickup at night. And that was true. And I worked Kathy Rush's camps. I didn't know how famous she was, right, when I was working her camps. Years later, I'm studying at the kitchen table, prepping to be a good, high school coach. And I read in one of Gino's books about Kathy Rush. And I just put the book down and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I worked her camps. I got to grow under her. So I think, just studying people all along the way, and I still study now, right? I still read about other coaches. I think what Dawn Staley's doing at South Carolina is incredible. I think she's really navigating the changing landscape of college basketball well. So I just keep studying whoever I can, whenever I can, including coaches at SLU.
That was Little Sisters of the Floor, right? I believe that's the movie.
Yeah. And Mighty Max. Have you seen Mighty Max?
Mighty Max. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. That's what it is. That's the movie I saw. But I think there's Little Sisters of the Floor is like I don't know. There's something out there about that. But Mighty Max is the movie I saw. You're right.
Yeah.
So then what was it? What was the opportunity that brought you into the college ranks? How did that come up?
Yeah, I love this story too. So there's kind of two parts to this. One is Jessica Olmstead, who's been a longtime assistant at the high school level with me, was with me at Longwood. One day we're just coaching at Forest Park and she says, I wish you were my college coach. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I really wish you'd coached in college. Like, we're one of my coaches. And she had good coaches in college as well. And then one day I'm in the snack bar after school at Forest Park selling pizzas, raising money for our program. And that year I had 5 juniors that we were trying to get recruited and to different colleges. I get a phone call from a college coach and I'm so excited. I think he's calling about one of my 5 seniors, right? And he goes, Coach, I'm actually calling about you. And I'm like, oh, I step out of the snack bar and, I'm like, I'm selling pizzas for these guys and I'm trying to help them. And, I actually didn't pursue that opportunity. I had an opportunity and didn't pursue it. Just the timing, sometimes in your life, it's not the right time. Well, after I did not pursue that opportunity, I was just bit by the college bug and the opportunity to study basketball all day, because I still view myself as a teacher. The court is my classroom, but now I get to study my favorite subject all day, every day, late into the night. So that's really kind of what happened. And then I, was actively pursuing college jobs after that, and then ended up working with Tom McConnell at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, who's part of a basketball legendary family himself in Pittsburgh. So,
TJ McConnell comes out of that family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ugh.
He's good.
Billiken fans do not like that name.
Yeah, he gave us nightmares.
I know. We'll have to cut that part of the podcast. No.
So then how were you able to that's a D2 school, and then it looks like you were only there for a season before you made the jump to Navy. How'd that happen?
So that happened, it's funny. There's a head coach now at Temple, Diane Richardson, who she and I had coached against each other in high school. And I saw her at the Final Four that year. And I think it was right before I ended up going to IUP. And she said, hey, we're on this side of the street, I think in Tampa at the Final Four. And she's like, you're next. And I'm like, what, coach? She's like, you're next. Like, you're going to go from college to high school next. So she was involved the year later when I ended up going to Navy. She made that first connection with the head coach at Navy and said, I really think you should look at Rebecca Tillett. And that's kind of how that connection was made. So, people talk a lot about your connections in the business, and sometimes it's as simple as having a good rivalry with another coach and they pass your name along to the right person. And then an incredible 4 years at Navy, where I think there's certain times in your career where you grow really quickly in your knowledge of the game or the business. And certain time at Navy was that. And I feel like I'm in another one of those times right now in my life, making this transition from Longwood to St. Louis, and on a fast learning curve. That's great, and something I seek out, I think, as a competitive woman.
Navy and the rest of the service academies have very unique, kind of histories and things that make them special, but also things that make them kind of unattractive to recruits. How do you, like Air Force, I think for men's basketball, I think there's a certain height that you can't, or it used to be like that. I don't know if it is anymore, but like, how did those kind of recruiting challenges shape your career and your recruiting once you no longer had to kind of abide by those challenges or deal with them?
Yeah, I think it prepared me well. I mean, I think it's a great place to start, Division I recruiting, because of those challenges that you talked about. There's also incredible opportunities, right? First of all, the women that choose to go to the Naval Academy or any of the service academies and play Division I athletics, and the men that choose that and serve their country after graduation, it's really a special group of people. So I value and cherish the time that I had there and the relationships that I maintain from that time. I think, one of the challenges that people maybe don't know about the academies is a lot of people want to be at an academy, right? There's a lot of people that try to get into academies. And so you want to make sure that the women that you recruit there also love basketball, because they are going to be drawn in so many directions when they're there at the academy. So that was part of the recruiting process that I had to learn quickly, was make sure that you're finding people that love the academy and love basketball, because everyone at the academy is on a full scholarship. So if at any point in time basketball is not a fit for them anymore, they're still going to maintain at the university. So that was a unique challenge that we worked through as well. And I think what I learned from all those lessons is, find the niche of the university that you're recruiting to, and then also find the fit to the style that you want to play, the staff that you want to bring in, and the other women that are going to be surrounded by the recruits you bring in. I think we take it as a pretty serious vetting process when we're choosing who's going to be a part of the community that we're building.
Yeah, it's such a unique place to coach. I mean, like I was curious to hear you talk about that because I feel like it's such a small pool of players that you can actually draw from. But then once you have them, you've got like people who live these incredibly structured lives and they're so self-motivated and disciplined and all that. So it's almost like they're really hard to find, but once you have them, they're all like coach's dream kind of players, I have to imagine. But
It's true. And one part of it is you never teach like team first model. You never had to teach that because that was taught by the military. So that they came in with that element ready to go. Some of the unique challenges were leadership is very well defined at the academies and, in the military by rank or class. And so that is unique in a team environment, and having to navigate that space as leaders was something we had to work through.
When you took the Longwood job, there was really no history of success at the Division One level for the program, which had only moved up to D1 in 2004. It was independent until 2011 and never been able to win much. But your third season, they're in the postseason, and in your fourth, you guys made the NCAA tournament and won a game. Again, this might be broad, but we're also talking about a program that, and this is well documented in the film. You should check it out, by the way. The Gray Seasons, that came from nothing just, 15 years ago, had no history, and has been kind of built up in the last, 10 years to respectability. But how does it happen so fast and so quickly at Longwood?
I think it's about the people that you bring together. When I first took the job, they really did want to change, and part of the story of all of that is the men's and women's programs hired new coaches at the same time, and both teams made the NCAA tournament in 4 years. So there was vision in place, right, by the leaders there. And then I think we just set about the work. We tell stories now about year one and year two and the challenges that you face. And, when we won in the NCAA tournament and we won the Big South Championship, I texted the first group, right, that was there, because they went through the toughest season in terms of wins and losses, but they built a foundation that ultimately led to our ability to be successful in year four. And so I think, throughout the interview processes and getting ready for making this jump, to St. Louis, one of the questions that kept coming up was, what question haven't we asked you that maybe we should ask you, right? And I answered that, what is the comprehensive approach that we have to developing a program? And I think when you're building that, like, you have a vision when you enter a program and we're going to do this, we're going to build this program up. Our goal is to win a championship. And I think for us, we have, a broad umbrella of things that we think and ultimately know now that we were successful in that place and now want to challenge ourselves to do it again. That led to the ability to do that. And it starts with the people that you choose. So surround yourself with an incredible staff that has talents, and then give them opportunities to lead. And I think we did that well at Longwood. We really took an approach of empowering women and bringing in strong women to speak to our women, frequently. And I think if you're surrounded by strong people who have done really great things in their life, and you stop and listen to their story and the adversity that they've overcome, that you can stay inspired to do that. And that's one of the things that drew me to SLU as well. There's incredible people down the hallway, all over campus, in our alumni network, the women we already have on the roster, the ones we're trying to bring in. And, our job as a staff is to bring all those people together and stay focused on the process day by day. And I think that's how we were able to have the success we had, the people and the process.
So based on that success, I'm guessing your phone rang more than once after that tournament win. What was it about the SLU job specifically? And I know you hit on a couple points already, but what else about the SLU job specifically drew you to that one?
Yeah, it was funny, throughout the process, I have some mentors, right, in the business. And one of my mentors was trying to prepare me for what might happen, especially if we won a game in the NCAA tournament. And then I was asked at a post-game interview about it as well. And, we just said the same thing I would say to our women, right? Answer the phone, see what happens. And when SLU called, I was not familiar with St. Louis other than they're in the A10, a league that I've long admired for their commitment to basketball and specifically women's basketball. And then getting to know Janet and Chris and Annie and having those, deep conversations about the things that are really important and, their commitment in this process to women's basketball. And obviously you guys have mentioned like SLU's done a lot of good things on the women's basketball side already, right? Postseason tournaments, WNIT, there's been good success here. I think it's really clear the next step that everybody wants to take. And having had the opportunity to do that with the team so recently, I want to do that as often as possible with as many women as possible throughout the rest of my career. And I think just the experience and that you gain from going to the NCAA tournament and competing, and then ultimately, I got a taste of it and want to do it more. Our staff got a taste of it and we want to do it more. So I think the commitment. And then there's a neat story about a professor at Longwood who's followed our team really closely. And we had some good exchanges of conversations after I decided to take the St. Louis job. And she put it in words that I hadn't quite figured out yet. And I've heard Chris and Janet mention it since. But in one of her final emails to me, throughout this process, she said, "It sounds like you were bringing SLU's values to Longwood all along." And I thought she put it in such a great perspective, like the way that our values match and our objectives match. And you'll hear Janet and Chris say, Rebecca doesn't use exactly the same words that we use, but if you look at the words and you match them up, they're all so similar. And so I think finding people that are passionate about the same things you're passionate about, and I want to be pushed. I want to be challenged. I love to compete. So, Chris and Janet's big expectations of what they want this program to be is something that I'm drawn to. I want to see if our staff can do it again, and I believe we can.
You mentioned a lot of the upsides, and of course that's always going to be why you take a job is for the good. The facilities, the Champion Center, the values, gratitude, as Chris will say all the time. The league, the people, Janet Oberly being one of my favorite. But what do you see as the challenges or things that you may need to overcome that are specific to this job, going forward?
I think one of the challenges is we need to recruit St. Louis well. And that was clear in the process as well, that that's something we want to do. And we're making, hopefully really targeted and smart early decisions on how to do that. And obviously me being not from St. Louis, adds to that challenge of making sure that we recruit this area well. So I think that's one of the unique challenges. And what is our reputation right now with high school coaches and AU coaches in the space. And I think that's something that you have to work constantly wherever you are to make sure that you're maintaining those contacts with those coaches that want to find the right place for their students to go on and continue and study and be taken care of in a great environment. So I think that is a challenge. It's one that we're aware of and we're actively seeking, to do a good job in that space.
When Travis Ford came into SLU, everybody kind of knew, he grabbed Corey Tate right away because of his connections with the St. Louis area, St. Louis high school basketball, AAU circuit. You've brought in, a lot of your Longwood staff. Are there plans to kind of bring on another staff member that's familiar with the area and has recruited the area?
So Tiffany Sarden, who we just announced, right, who was the head coach at Chicago State most recently, did work with us at Longwood, but has Midwest ties, and then I think the part about, you have to build relationships wherever you are. And one advantage that I do think I have that I hope will translate, and obviously we'll be talking over the years to see whether it does or does not, is that when I do go into a high school gym, like I am one of them, right? Like I have coached that level for a long time. And so I'm hoping that that's going to help us, break barriers quicker, in that, we build that relationship quickly for that shared experience that we have. I also think, having been at Navy, we had to recruit nationally, right? With challenges there. So no, I don't have someone specifically from St. Louis right this second on the roster of the coaching staff. I do think that Tiffany's Midwest experience is going to translate for us right away. And then I think we're going to be strategic in how we approach it. And I think that's part of our job to do.
So given that, you've kind of kept this core from Longwood, people that you've worked with there, intact for your coaching staff. What was the decision there to kind of keep a group together rather than cast a wider net and see what else would be out there?
Yeah, I think part of it is, when you do something as special as what we did together, how each other work and operate. And all of us know that coming from Longwood to the A10, right, from the Big South to the A10 is a jump. We understand that. And I think, having people around you that share the vision, share the values, and have a shared experience together is important. And I think we've had those conversations as a group about what are the areas we'll need to elevate to be successful in this space. And I also think, there are coaches that'll go from job to job and they won't take anybody with them. And that's a style and a process that maybe works for some people. Me being a relationship driven person, that's not what works for me. And I think the relationships that we've built, the trust that we've built over our time together is going to give us a head start in some categories. And like you mentioned, there's going to be challenges for us as well. And we're learning those and going to work hard together to overcome anything, any adversity that comes our way. We do have one position we're still hiring for, and that's the video coordinator. And so, actively looking for someone new to join our team. And so that's been a great process as well, is to see the level of talent out there and search through to find the right fit for us.
Yeah, so that actually answered my next question. I was wondering if there were any more positions to fill. So then,
So there's one that's filled that's not announced. So there's a director of scout.
Okay.
We can do it right now. We can break the news.
I know. I think it's gonna break tomorrow, so maybe we'll get a
Of
retweet.
course. Well,
Okay,
this happens to us all the time. We record on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
And news breaks Monday.
The next day.
Just it's clockwork. It really is.
So yeah, we'll have a director of scouting and program development to be announced, and then a video coordinator, sometime in the next, week or so.
We talked about, the local high schools, the local recruits, but as it goes to the community at large, the program, its profile hasn't really ever been high. Attendance, I mean, it's kind of rough playing in a big arena. Attendance doesn't really fill it most nights. How do you plan to we covered recruiting players here, like from sales, but embrace the community at large and bring in those fans and boosters that maybe haven't considered SLU basketball?
Yeah, I think that's a multi-pronged approach that we need to do. And, it can start with, how we get out in the community as a group, which our women will be here, June 8th, starting training. So we'll have some opportunities this summer to get out, and of course the fall and the spring, how we interact with our alumni, right? How we get in touch with them and get them back and involved, especially the ones that are local. And how we involve ourselves with donors and past supporters, right? There are women's basketball season ticket holders out there. We want to increase that number every single year, and just engaging with them. And so inviting them, personal touch, events that we hold, and how we get out in the community. I think all of that's going to matter. And then, what we do on the court, right? I think the style that we play, the passion that people will see displayed on the court, and then ultimately success. People want to support teams that are really successful. And so I think, we're going to have to approach that in all those different areas and do a good job at all of them. And I think over time, we're going to increase that. We have big goals in terms of increasing the attendance, and the fan support helps us be successful. So if we do a good job of bringing them in, and then we do a great job on the court, they actually can help influence our ability to win and be successful.
What was your message to the existing players, the returning players, when you met with them for the first time?
Yeah, the initial message is, it's a transition period, right, for everybody, and change can be uncomfortable. And in this space, these are the things that you can expect from me and our staff. And of course, at the beginning, it was just me, right? Because it takes time to hire a staff, go through the HR processes and everything. And so really talked about, what do we build a foundation of a program on that's led by me and the people that I bring in. And that's, one of the concepts we talk about is arete, excellence of any kind, and the act of living up to one's full potential. And I refer to this often. You guys will hear me talk about it more than once. Our players will hear me talk about it hundreds of times. But that part about the act, the fact that you have to do it over and over to pursue excellence, to pursue championships, to pursue being a really empowered woman in every space that you walk into. Then I just touched on empowering women, which obviously is a guiding force in our program. And then I talked about our core values, right? Joy, we want to do this and we want to have fun doing it. And sometimes you have to create joy. Sometimes you have to make joy. And we talk about that in our space, and that, you got to hold each other to that standard. There's certainly times that players will tap me on the shoulder, in a shoot around. Hey, remember, one of our core values is joy, when I'm at like max intensity and trying to get us to be really focused for the game at hand. But I love it though. I love that shared ownership and that shared leadership that we have in our program. Love, we expect to love each other. We always say the players need to love each other and the coaches need to love the players, and the players mostly love the coaches, but there's some days that they don't feel as strongly about that emotion towards us. And then toughness, having toughness in space with each other, and that life's going to throw us adversity. I think the whole world has learned that, in some tough places in the past couple of years, and even in the past couple of days. And then the last one's collective responsibility. You're responsible for yourself, but you're also responsible to the woman standing to the left and the right of you in the circle before practice, and the one across from you. So we talked about all those things in that very first initial meeting, and got a lot of head nods, a lot of positivity in terms of, okay, this is what we're doing. We know who she is now and what she's about, and now let's take some steps forward together.
There's obviously, college basketball is changing, but one of the things that I think hasn't really ever changed is, especially on the men's side, is that players tend to leave when there's a coaching change or ask out of their commitment. The culture of women's basketball is a little bit different. It's a lot more education focused behind the game. Mm-hmm. What do you think were the challenges you face, and maybe kind of do you think it was easier to convince those that were already here to stay?
Yeah, good question. I think the college landscape for all of us is changing. The women's side as well. I don't think we're going to be immune from the effects of the portal and, just the changing landscape. And so I think education does play a huge factor in, how you feel about a university can draw you in. Coaching changes are, it creates a lot of uncertainty for everybody involved. And so I think those conversations are critical to have. And, it's one of the first things that we did after getting on the court before the press conference was, have the individual meetings, and let each player hear from me what the program is going to look like, and let them tell me what it has been for them and what they hope it is in the future. And so I think those are serious, thoughtful conversations that need to be had every year on every team, whether there's a coaching change or not. But when there is a coaching change, I think there's, intensity to it, sensitivity that needs to be, displayed on both sides, and compassion. And then figure out what's best for each individual moving forward for the team.
So 3 of the 4 incoming players that Coach Stones had signed in the fall decided to stay, committed to SLU after you were hired. I think the other one had already opted out well before you were announced. Were you familiar at all with them as recruits before taking the job? And was your message to them basically the same as it was for the players already at SLU?
Yeah, great question. I called them night number 1 too, because you want to know quickly, how you're proceeding. I actually had seen Abby play before through just normal recruiting processes. Mia and Ashley, I had not seen prior to arriving at SLU. So that was part of the first call as well, right? Send me your best game, most competitive game, high school game, so we can evaluate you quickly. And yeah, so those were those initial conversations for them to hear about what we're about, and then for me to get to know them better and watch film and figure out how to build this roster, the best that we can for year 1.
That seems like such an uncomfortable question. Like, hey, you committed to this school. I'm the sheriff in town now. Impress me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you kind of gather up the, like, I don't know. I feel like I would never make that. Like that's definitely what separates a person like you and a person like me. But I mean, how do you handle that situation?
Yeah, great question. I don't think it's impressed me though. I think the word I would use, get to know me, right?
Right.
And of course you're right. Like there's a feeling on the recruit side, that the student athlete side, like, oh my gosh, I already went through this whole process. I found where I wanted to go and the staff I wanted to work with. And now I'm in this other space with someone that I may not know anything about at all. And so I think it's, part of the getting to know you process. And I found over the years in recruiting on this side, and then even when you're recruiting someone out of high school and the transfer portal, they want to know what you think of their game. They really do. And they want the truth. They want to know what you like about it. And they want to know, where do you think I need to get better? And I've found in my career and our staff, the more honest we are and direct in those conversations, the better it is for everybody involved. And recruits really seek that. So that's what we did, is we evaluated the film and then had those conversations with each of them, and, hopefully built the foundation of a basketball relationship that's going to be good for their development and ultimately for the success of the team.
I'm curious, what part of the process for you in leading up to you taking the job, or more, was it after, was the evaluation of the product that was on the floor already in the last year? So how much game film did you watch? Jump on it out. What's the service? I can't think of it right now.
Synergy.
Yeah, jump on Synergy and check out all the games.
Yeah. So I think when you're preparing for a job, you have to watch some, even in the preparation process, to be able to answer the types of questions that you field from athletic directors and leaders. And you want to know what you're potentially getting yourself into in terms of the roster. So there was some early evaluation, in the recruitment process of figuring out if this was the right fit for Chris and Jana and for me. And then I think what we do is we go and watch the top teams in the league, because you want to see how SLU has competed against the top teams in the league in the past year. There's a couple of years I want to go back as well, which I haven't gotten to yet, but I will in our research to help us prepare and decide, is the roster in a place where you think you can be successful? What movement do you have? And, when you make these decisions, you want to be successful as quickly as possible. We all know that culture is not developed in 1 year, right? It's not. And oftentimes the timeline people will put on it, culture like really being solidified, is around 3 years. I think in our business, though, as coaches, in education, we want to speed that process up. So we're always looking for ways to speed it up. So definitely evaluated film, both on SLU and the top teams in the league, which of course, even those are changing, right? Dayton had a coaching change and then ultimately quite a few roster changes. So I think the best predictors in the business, are gonna find some success on what does it take to get to the top of the A10 while you're evaluating other teams where their rosters are changing pretty consistently as well.
Yeah, I think that Dayton film triples is a couple of other teams now. I think 2 of them went to Rhode Island, and then one, I don't know. All three of them are still in the A10 though. I found that out. You mentioned kind of, we talked about watching film on this past season. Brooke Flowers is really the centerpiece of the returning players from last year. She has shown flashes of being brilliant, but inconsistent at times. Obviously, you've watched some film, but how much have you been able to assess, and how best to bring the brilliance out consistently, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, great question. I think obviously, her defensive prowess, right? Defensive player of the year, now reigning, and, will be the one for people to try to knock off of that next season. I think, developing that, we're going to play a little bit different defensive style as well, that I think is going to help her, continue to elevate in that space. And then I think find some consistency on offense. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. One is time in the gym, right? And she knows that, right? She's got to put in the work and the time, both on her own and with her position coach, and then in the formal practices that we have. And then also how you surround, right? And just having people with her that are going to be hard to guard. And that's something we talk about a lot in terms of how do you make the opposing team uncomfortable? Well, you put 5 women on the floor that they have to guard. As soon as you put one person on that they decide they're not going to guard, it's going to make things more difficult on a player like Brooke, and double teams and schemes and stuff like that. So we talk to our women about that. Keep developing your skill set, whatever that is, so that when we, match up with the opponents, they can't find an area on the court or a woman on our team that they can't guard. So I think just her development in that space, both in the teammates around her and the system that will run offensively, I'm really excited about her. She's the most size that I've coached. I've been more known for undersized post players, and she's not undersized. So I'm really excited to see her in some of our schemes.
I have a question that kind of piggybacks off that, and it's traditionally, I think it's been kind of a tough subject to talk about, kind of on the women's side because of, I guess gender roles and norms, right? Physicality and physically speaking, development of players. How much of a challenge is it to kind of, get some of the women to put on the muscle, or, I don't really know how to phrase it to where without end up incriminating myself or getting myself slapped by some woman that might listen to this show.
No, you're doing great. I mean, look, we want to be stronger. We want to be faster. And we're always in that space of how can we elevate our performance, across the board, academically. And then of course, once we get into the athletic performance space. So I think, that is something that drew me to SLU in terms of the resources that we have, nutritionists, access, that, and then the places I've been before where people are really successful, they have those goals in mind and then they work towards them. So I do think our team needs to get stronger. I think we need to get more fit. And I've said that to our women. So I'm not shy to say that, to you guys and all the people that are kindly listening to us. I think we're going to have a strategic plan for how we want to do that. One of them is we do toughness with the Marine Corps. You might have heard about that. That's part of our preseason training. And I think it just shows women how strong you can be, what challenges you can go through. Some of the best competitors that I've coached over the years, they want to know the actual Marine target numbers. And then they're pursuing that in their workouts. And I think the women that elevates the best, they add extra workouts, they add extra meals, they meet with the nutritionist and develop a plan. So I think all of that will be part of our, individual and collective goals for the season.
So given that you brought, your whole coaching staff coached with you at Longwood at one time or another, or played for you, and now you've got multiple transfers coming from there as well. How do you make sure that your locker room culture is cohesive and that the existing players or the incoming recruits, don't feel like they're not part of the Farmville club with the rest of you?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be asked that question multiple times, and it's a worthy question, right? And I think our job as a staff is we're creating one St. Louis team, right? That's what we're here to do. And our women that are coming from Longwood know that, and they have spoken, openly about those challenges. How do we build this, cohesive unit that we were able to successfully build once already? How do we do it again? Well, we follow the same processes. And I think something I learned a long time ago from Tom McConnell when I was at IUP, there is no, you were the previous, players and there is none of that. We're all St. Louis women's basketball now. That's who we are. And that is probably easier said than done, right? But we have to stay connected to that statement and that value, and work towards that. And I think one of the things that our staff has done well over the years is bring people in the fold, because no matter where you are, you're bringing new people into the organization, whether it's freshmen or transfers, or typically you have some turnover on staff from year to year. So you're really rebuilding that culture every year. This is a unique one because we're bringing a lot of people from an established culture to enter another established culture. So it's actually the question that's probably the most on my mind after let's finish out our recruiting, get this roster set, and then how do we operate in that space? And I think, we're going to have a leadership group within the team, that we actually have our women apply for that role. And, that application process is open to everybody. And so it'll be really interesting to see which women choose to go through that process, which is a cover letter, a resume, interview with the coaching staff. I'm really excited to do that again. Ours was established at Longwood. And so now we get to recreate that and have a new group together. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And in that group, we tackle a lot of these questions and concerns for the program throughout the entire season. And that'll be one of our primary questions. How do we do that? How do we build this as one cohesive group?
You brought over, I believe it's going to be 4 total players from Longwood. And, whether it's, 100% true or not, the A10 is it's looked at as a higher competition level. How do you think the players you've brought over, what makes them suited to take that step up, to elevate their game maybe?
Yeah. I think you can start with Kyla McMakin is an easy one to talk about in terms of, her scoring will translate. And most of the A10 wanted to get her as well when she went in the transfer portal. And she had other, even Power 5 opportunities as well. So I think her game's going to immediately translate. I think we were really fortunate to have her for 3 years at Longwood. Every year we would hold our breath in the transfer portal season, would she be back? And she made that commitment to come here, and she wants to help elevate SLU, and she wants to continue to elevate her own game. So really excited about that. Kennedy Calhoun, who's obviously been publicly announced as well. She's a point guard who studied under Tredasia Smith, who's our, assistant coach now. And she's somebody that something that we need to do at SLU, and we needed to do at Longwood, and every program's talking about in the country. You have to put in a ton of work. If you want to compete at the top of whatever league you're in, you need to put in that amount of work. And Ken is someone that if you walk by the pavilion any given morning and likely any given night, you're going to see her there working. And she's another one who we got in pandemic recruiting that I'm not sure we would have got at Longwood if she had a complete recruiting process where everybody could have seen her play and she didn't get to play. So those two, I think right away, are going to be able to translate their game to the A10 and obviously have to work and prove it. And they're excited about that and they're competitive with that. And then I think as we announce more and more recruits, you'll see kind of the overall picture that we're trying to build here. And obviously we have some talent in our space already that we want to utilize and build around. So I think my goal and our staff's goal in recruiting is what talents do we already have on the roster and how do we go out and seek other talented women to join the roster and fill in what we need to build a team that's going to be competitive quickly in the A10, because that is our goal.
So the roster isn't set yet. You still have some open spots for this season?
We do. We have had some official visits this week and next, and hoping to round those out as the rest of the country is as well, because we're getting them back on campus here soon. So excited about some of these other women that we'll hopefully be introducing to you guys in the next couple of weeks.
How much of this upcoming, I mean, you kind of talked about the characteristics you look for in a recruit, but as far as the schedule goes that these women will be playing, how much of that non-conference schedule was set when you arrived, and how much do you still have left to kind of put together?
Yeah, I'd say probably over half was already contracted, which is pretty typical. We contract approximately 2 years every contract cycle. So that's pretty normal. We did have some flexibility in that, and are excited about a couple of the changes that we're not making. They weren't scheduled yet. So adding teams to that, and maybe a trip. It's important that we're successful in the non-conference and competing. And one of the things we look for every time we build it is how many different types of styles can we get in the non-conference so that we're as prepared as possible for the A10 schedule. So those are some of the things that are on the top of our mind as we build it.
Are there? Oh, sorry, Pete. Are there any coaches in the A10 that you have that you're familiar with, or that you have a relationship with, and which schools and which coaches? I'm curious.
Yeah. So Richmond, Aaron Roussel, we coached against each other when he was at Bucknell and I was at Navy. And actually, we were in multiple championship games against each other. And then we played against him this year as well. So probably know him the best just from previous, spaces. Have studied Tammy Reese a little bit since she got to Rhode Island, and just kind of watching what she's been doing there. Um, Caroline McCombs at GW actually recruited one of my high school athletes when I was a high school coach. So I actually remember her sitting in on a film session that I was doing with a high school team many, many years ago. So have met her through that process. And then obviously got to go to the A10 meetings and got to meet everybody. We played Dan Burt from Duquesne when I was at Longwood this year. So we actually played Duquesne and Richmond in December this year. So yeah, and I mean, I've crossed a few others on the recruiting trail, and then just our time in college athletics. But that's certainly our biggest summer project is studying them and studying their programs and being ready to compete out of the gate in the A10.
So you've talked about some of the things that you look for in a non-conference schedule, like variety. But are there things that change going from the Big South to the A10 about how you approach the non-conference schedule, and particularly this year being a transitional year? Are there I know some coaches kind of take a little easier schedule than they normally would, for example. So are there any of those changes in your approach happening this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're still finalizing it. So I think I'm still thinking through some of those things that certainly at Longwood and here, paying attention to net, right? And trying to position yourself in a good spot. And certainly in the A10, that's critical as we want to maintain being a multi-bid league, right? So that's strategic. I think that's becoming more and more challenging because you're looking at the team's last year's net, and then you're pulling their statistics, crossing off the transfers, and then researching who are the new transfers coming in, and really making some big predictions on, are people going to stay near where they were last year? Are they going to make a big jump up or down depending on the transfers that they bring in? So I think those things are important. At Longwood, I think we were known for pretty challenging schedules. I want in the non-conference for preparation. I do want to maintain some of that as we build here. I want to be mindful of where we are right now and what we need to learn in the given, in the coming year. So I think there'll be a balance, both in, where are we going in terms of building our net and being competitive in the A10, and then that variety that we talked about, and having some challenging teams on there that show us where we need to continue to go. And hopefully you get some of them early, and maybe you knock a few off by being the more prepared team.
So you've been in town for a couple, or for about a month, maybe a little over. Have you had a chance to venture out in the area and find any new favorite local spots, whether they be food or just general hangout locations?
Yeah, we're trying to go to different restaurants, right? And learn both for our job function, right? You got to take people to the right spots. And then also just, I think a lot of our staff loves different variety of food. So goodness, I'm on the spot here though, to remember places that we've been. I know I've been to Mission Taco and had a great time there. We went to I'm not going to remember the names. This is not my strength, guys. This is really not.
You're fine there. St. Louis is a low key, really good food city, and you do not have to have an opinion on Emo's Pizza. Strong either way. You do
Okay.
not. That is a complete.
It's a myth.
It's a myth that I would like to personally debunk. You do not have to have an opinion. It can be just chain pizza that you snag because you're in the mood for it. I promise you. It is fine. It is not bad. It is not great. It is fine.
I might have to ask other people if they agree with your opinion on this, because I feel like I'm missing part of the story.
I mean, it's good. It's like Papa John's. You sometimes you just like that's what you're in the mood.
St. Louis pizza is polarizing. I'll put it that
There
way.
are
If
great
you haven't
spots.
had it yet, it's polarizing.
But,
What side are you guys, like, what side are you on, Peter? What's up?
Oh, I'm pro. I grew up with it. I love it.
I'm pro, but I'm partial to places, where I grew up out in North St. Louis County, Delwood, Ferguson area. There's there's a couple spots. No free ads on the pod though. No free ads.
Okay.
I'm kidding. But yeah. Well, actually, we have one very serious question. Can you tell us what a Billiken is?
I can. It's a mythical good luck creature.
I think that's good. That's
concise. You did better than the Davidson baseball announcers did on the broadcast of the A10 tournament this weekend. So.
Oh no. Well, I have people that are fans, research and send me really detailed research. So I'm still in the midst of learning as much as I can. But seems like a great, mascot for us to think about. And I love that we're the only one, right? We're the only one. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're not Rams like three other teams in this conference.
Exactly. We're unique.
Pete, any questions that I might have skipped over?
No, that's it for me. Thanks for taking the time, Coach. Really appreciate this.
Yes, Coach. Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope Billiken fans kind of got an idea of what you're about, and we dug a little deeper. We like to find, again, I say this every time, and I'm sure everybody who listens, tell the stories that people didn't know they wanted to hear. And I hope we achieved that goal, and I'm sure we did. Thank you again so much, and you're welcome on anytime. We'll call up Nick and make it happen.
Thank you both for having me and for your support of all Billiken athletics. And yeah, just can't wait to get started. And anybody listening, please come out, meet us, come to the games. We need the support.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Good luck this season.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.